Imagine someone looks at the combined work of like every Nobel Prize winning scientist
Right.
and every religious leader in history, every head of state, and they just look at all of that and say, you are all completely fundamentally wrong.
Which is just, I mean, it's wild.
It's totally wild. But today is Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, and welcome to this deep dive because we are unpacking a text that does exactly that.
Yeah, we really are.
We're looking at excerpts from a highly dogmatic, incredibly provocative text. It's titled The Tao and Its Virtue by an author named Zhuefeng.
Right, Zhuefeng.
But before we even step into this whole cosmology, I need to put a really firm boundary in place for you, our listener.
Definitely necessary here.
Yeah, because this text contains, incredibly sweeping, politically and religiously charged claims. He goes after atheists, theists, scientists, just society at large.
Nobody is spared.
Exactly. So our mission today is strictly to unpack and understand the author's unique worldview impartially. We're not endorsing it.
No, not at all.
Or validating it or taking sides on any of the viewpoints presented. We're simply, exploring the architecture of a very bold set of ideas.
And I mean, the audacity of this text is really what makes it such a fascinating case study in worldview construction.
Yeah.
We're examining an assertion that nearly every single person on Earth is currently misunderstanding the fundamental mechanics of the universe.
Like all 8 billion of us.
Right. The author basically clears the entire stage of human intellectual history to argue that only one highly specific group is positioned to lead humanity to this perfect future.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can look at who the author is criticizing, which, like you said, happens to be almost everybody, we first need to understand the absolute baseline of his philosophy.
The foundation.
Right. He lays out these massive, all-encompassing definitions for two specific concepts, the Tao and the virtue.
And he's not using them the way you might think.
No, not at all. In his text, the Tao isn't framed as just like a philosophical path or some gentle way of living. He defines it as the consciousness of the greatest creator, the ultimate source of life, and literally the blood of the universe.
He is proposing a literal physics of morality.
Physics of morality.
Yeah, because we usually separate the physical laws of the universe, like, gravity, from the moral laws of human society, like justice or ethics.
Sure, they're two different realms.
Yeah, exactly. But Zhuefeng completely merges them. He argues that the exact same energy keeping the Earth in a stable orbit around the sun is the identical energy required to keep a human society rational and harmonious. And that unifying force is the Tao.
Wow.
It's the ultimate truth maintaining orderly operation across the whole cosmos.
It almost reads like computer architecture.
Oh, like that.
Like the Tao acts as the universe's foundational operating system. It's this invisible code running everything in the background.
Yeah, the OS.
Right. And he pairs that with the virtue. So if the Tao is the omnipotent operating system, virtue is the flawless, bug-free user interface.
That's a great way to put it.
He defines virtue as this inner quality possessed by sages, a quality that actively propels human society toward joy and rationality.
The OS and UI framework really perfectly captures the dynamic he's describing. The sages are the individuals who have, figured out the interface.
They know how to use it.
Right. They're writing code in perfect harmony with the universal operating system, while everyday society is essentially just banging on the keyboard, generating errors.
Mashing the keys.
Pretty much. And Zhuefeng insists this isn't some abstract academic theory you casually ponder.
Right. It's not a thought experiment.
No, he claims that pursuing the Tao and virtue is a visceral, physiological awakening.
Oh, wow.
The text states that if a person even begins to grasp these concepts, they enter a realm where they're so overwhelmed they can barely sleep. Their hearts are just filled with passionate waves of emotion.
Passionate waves of emotion. He frames it as this almost overwhelming biological resonance with the universe.
Yes, very physical.
And he actually points to the ancient philosopher Lao Tzu, noting that his text, the Tao Te Ching, is like the most accurate starting point for anyone trying to grasp this baseline.
Right, it's the closest we've gotten.
But this operating system metaphor, it creates an immediate problem.
Yeah.
If the universe's code is flawlessly running the planets and the stars...
Why are we such a mess?
Exactly.
Why?
Why is the human experience so notoriously buggy?
Yeah.
Why isn't everyone walking around filled with these passionate waves of cosmic emotion?
Well, according to Zhuefeng, the bug in the system is basically the entirety of the modern intellectual and spiritual establishment.
Just all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
This leads right into his great critique, where he systematically looks at the structures humanity relies on for truth and just completely dismantles their capacity to understand reality.
Yeah, and he starts by looking at the people we typically consider the smartest in the room. He describes, like, browsing the internet, reading articles by esteemed officials, experts, professors, scholars.
The intellectuals.
Right. And his conclusion is that watching them attempt to discuss morality or the Tao is like listening to preschool children trying to debate quantum mechanics.
It's so dismissive.
It really is. He likens it to blindfolded people wandering aimlessly in a maze, and he literally calls their efforts comical and entertaining.
What's fascinating here is the rhetorical strategy. By framing the world's most educated experts as adorable, bumbling toddlers,
Yeah.
he instantly invalidates the academic establishment without ever having to debate their specific theories.
He doesn't have to engage with the actual work.
Exactly. He isn't engaging with their arguments at all. He's dismissing their very sensory capacity to perceive the universe.
Right.
If you're blindfolded, it doesn't matter how meticulously you map the maze. You are still fundamentally blind to the larger reality.
And he applies that exact same sensory dismissal to entire belief systems, starting with atheists.
Oh, he goes hard after atheists.
He does. He claims atheists are inherently deficient in their psychological development. He uses the ancient concept of yin and yang and argues that atheists only acknowledge yang, the material, measurable world.
So physical stuff.
Right, and completely reject yin, which is the non-material spiritual world. So because they lack the sensory equipment to perceive the non-material, they're just permanently locked out of the Tao.
He borrows a brilliant, piercing quote from the ancient philosophers Wangzi to illustrate this mechanism. He says, "Morning mushrooms do not know the cycle of day and night."
Morning mushrooms.
Right, a mushroom that sprouts at dawn and dies by noon has no physical framework to comprehend dusk, let alone tomorrow.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Wei Feng compares atheists to summer insects that live and die in one single season. They simply cannot fathom the existence of winter.
Because they just haven't seen it.
Because their methodology relies strictly on what can be touched, measured, and quantified, their reality is perpetually truncated.
I mean, I can follow his logic there,
Right.
given the deeply spiritual nature of his text. It makes sense that he would criticize a purely material worldview.
Sure, it tracks.
But his attack on theists threw me entirely.
Oh, it's fascinating.
You would assume that people who actively believe in a higher power in a non-material world would be, like, his core target demographic.
You'd think so.
Instead, he claims that theists who fail to cultivate virtue are actually capable of devolving into something far more dangerous than atheists.
Yeah, the distinction he makes here is chilling, and it reveals a lot about how he categorizes danger.
How so?
Well, he argues that an atheist without virtue might impose terror over the physical aspects of humanity. Think of a terrestrial dictatorship enforcing physical control or, restricting bodily movement.
Right, physical oppression.
But a theist who devolves into malevolence wields what he calls spiritual terror.
So physical dictators lock up your body, but spiritual dictators lock up your reality.
Precisely. They have the power to control and damage the ethereal spiritual aspects of humanity. They can dictate the terms of salvation, manipulate the fear of the afterlife.
Oh, weaponize hell.
Exactly. They control a person's eternal soul, which Su Feng views as a far more profound violation of the cosmic order.
And that brings his critique directly to the doorsteps of organized religions and political parties. He just disqualifies them completely, arguing that they are fragile, artificial constructs.
Very fragile.
He says they survive only by proclaiming their specific doctrines as the absolute, enclosed truth, deliberately shutting out outside thought to keep their followers compliant.
He uses a biological term for it, saying they lack immunity. If they let in foreign ideas, the whole structure just collapses.
And we also see him target the scientific community using that same mechanism. He argues that purely natural scientists and sociologists suffer from a fatal cognitive rigidity.
Yeah, returning to your computer metaphor, they are obsessively trying to fix the hardware without realizing they are entirely locked out of the software.
That's good.
He points out that if you told a rigid scientist that a physical illness actually stems from a non-material, spiritual imperfection in a person's connection to the Tao, the scientist wouldn't even be able to entertain the hypothesis.
They'd laugh you out of the room.
Right, it falls completely outside their parameters of imagination.
I have to pause here and just look at the sheer scale of this critique. Because this isn't just a disagreement over, like, a few core principles.
No, it's everything.
He is dismissing the lived experiences, the scientific breakthroughs, and the spiritual traditions of billions of people.
Yep.
Writing off the entire globe as either toddlers, morning mushrooms, or spiritual terrorists is an epistemic reset of massive proportions.
It speaks to the fundamental nature of dogmatic texts, though. Shuifeng has zero interest in a pluralistic world where many valid truths can coexist.
It's his way or nothing.
Right. He is systematically burning down every existing institution of knowledge, science, academia, religion, politics to create a total vacuum.
Just clearing the board.
Exactly. By invalidating the atheists for being spiritually blind, the theists for being spiritually dangerous, and the scientists for being overly rigid, he is clearing the slate so his own philosophy becomes the sole viable alternative remaining.
Okay, but if the everyday masses are too busy surviving, the experts are toddlers, the scientists are rigid, and the religions are fragile incubators of spiritual terror.
Yeah.
Who is actually left holding this cosmic truth?
Good question.
His answer is the sages.
Yeah.
But he introduces a major complication here. He argues that these sages are fundamentally misunderstood by the rest of humanity.
Right. Because the masses operate outside the frequency of the Tao, they're forced to view the actions of a sage through their own flawed worldly lenses.
They just can't see it clearly.
Exactly. The text suggests that ordinary people constantly project their own unevolved greed, ambition, and cynicism onto these enlightened figures.
And he illustrates this with some incredibly vivid analogies. He asks you to picture a flock of sheep looking up at their shepherd.
I love this one.
It's so good.
Mm.
The sheep see the shepherd using a whip to keep the flock together, stopping them from wandering off a cliff or, eating poisonous plants.
Right.
But because the sheep only understand the world through the desires of a sheep, they assume the shepherd is just power hungry. They think, this guy just wants to control us. He wants to be the sheep king.
It captures the mechanics of cynicism perfectly. A mind that operates on the currency of power and control cannot even conceive of a mind that operates on the currency of universal harmony.
He doubles down on this with another analogy, too.
Huh.
A frog sitting at the bottom of a dark well, trying to comprehend the motivations of a giant dragon swimming in the vast ocean.
Right.
The frog only knows the physical boundaries of the well, so it attempts to judge the dragon by the rules of the well.
It's impossible.
Yeah. And the author backs this up with heavy historical examples. He points to Jesus actively fleeing from the crowds who wanted to make him the king of Israel, treating earthly power like a calamity.
Yeah.
And he brings up Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, noting that he was a literal prince who possessed zero desire to conquer or unify neighboring kingdoms.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Shuifeng is executing a total redefinition of power here.
How so?
In the worldly material view, power is synonymous with control, ruling the sheep, conquering the neighboring kingdom, hoarding resources. But for the sage in this framework, worldly power is actually a massive downgrade.
It's beneath them.
Right. True power is spiritual alignment with the Tao.
Mm.
The sage has absolutely no interest in being the sheep king because earthly rule is utterly meaningless when you have access to the cosmic source code.
So what does this all mean? For you listening, I think this serves as a really fascinating psychological mirror to hold up to ourselves.
Oh, definitely.
When you encounter someone in your life with seemingly pure motives, someone dedicating themselves to a cause without obvious personal gain, is your first reflex to search for a hidden selfish agenda.
What's their angle?
Exactly. Do you automatically assume they secretly want money, fame, or leverage? According to the mechanics of Lifechanyuan's worldview, that very cynicism is proof of your own detachment from virtue.
Yeah.
If you assume everyone wants to be the sheep king, it merely proves you are still thinking like a sheep.
The psychological observation holds weight regardless of whether one buys into his broader cosmology.
Yeah, that's true.
He's highlighting how a compromised paradigm struggles to process pure data. The frogs simply cannot compute the ocean.
Okay, so we've watched the author tear down the entire infrastructure of modern society. He's established the archetype of the pure, chronically misunderstood sage.
The board is clear?
The board is clear. And now, the text reaches its critical climax. Having emptied the stage of all other contenders, he finally introduces his highly specific, entirely exclusive solution for the future of humanity.
The vacuum he created over the first half of the text is finally filled, and he fills it with a paradigm that he claims is entirely unique in human history.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Yufeng claims that only a specific group called Lifechanyuan and its members, known as Chanyuan Celestials, have the potential to truly embody the Tao and its virtue in the modern era.
And he goes to great lengths to describe Lifechanyuan not as another fragile religion or a rigid political party, but as a boundless, dynamically evolving system.
Right.
He claims it remains constant within change and changes within constancy. Crucially, he insists it operates without borders. It does not serve any single nation, social class, or ethnicity.
It's totally universal.
Right. Its stated purpose is to serve the entire cosmic life system, absorbing the moral essence of all previous religions and welcoming wisdom from every corner of the universe.
The rhetoric sounds incredibly expansive, but the sheer confidence, the audacity of the exclusivity claims he attaches to this group is really staggering.
It is.
He illustrates this by stating that in the future, if you happen to be ignorant of Shakespeare's plays or Einstein's theory of relativity or the history of Mayan culture, people might give you a pass. They won't laugh at you.
Sure.
But if you're ignorant of Lifechanyuan, it means you have completely stagnated. Your spiritual development has decayed, and you are on a one-way path to becoming a mummy.
The term mummy is such a striking, specific insult.
Isn't it?
It really invokes a hollowed-out, preserved corpse. Something that looks human on the outside, but has absolutely no life, no blood, and no spirit remaining inside.
It's a brutal dismissal. He's arguing that lacking the foundational knowledge of physics or classical literature is perfectly fine. But lacking knowledge of his specific organization turns you into a mummified husk of a human being.
Yeah.
The ideological certainty required to write that sentence is just immense.
It is immense, and it reveals a massive paradox sitting right in the center of this philosophical climax.
It's a paradox of the whole thing.
Let's look closely at the mechanics of his final claim. On one hand, he defines Lifechanyuan as the ultimate inclusive cosmic net. It is a perfectly open, boundless system that takes in all wisdom, rejects nothing true, and operates entirely without borders.
But on the other hand, in the exact same breath, he insists that only his followers, the Chanyuan Celestials, will actually possess the ultimate truth.
Right.
He writes explicitly, the Tao and its virtue will be embodied solely by Chanyuan Celestials.
The contradiction is glaring. It's a fierce exclusivity claim heavily disguised in the language of universal inclusion. He is promising a borderless universe, but he is fiercely guarding the only gate that leads inside.
You simply cannot claim to be a boundless system without borders, while simultaneously maintaining a highly exclusive VIP list for who gets to achieve universal enlightenment.
You really can't.
But the text doesn't dwell on this contradiction. Instead, it bypasses the paradox entirely by ending with a grand mythic prophecy.
Yeah, the awakening.
Right. The author declares that soon, these Chanyuan Celestials will emerge from their cocoons. They will awaken from their dormant, misunderstood state and soar like the legendary kunpeng bird.
And for context, the kunpeng is a massive mythical Chinese bird said to be so unimaginably large that when it spreads its wings, they span across the oceans, covering the sky like clouds.
Huge imagery.
Exactly. By invoking this imagery, Xuefeng is painting an eschatological vision.
It's the promise of a total planetary reset. A new world order spearheaded by a vanguard of enlightened beings. The narrative arc is one we see embedded in so many absolute belief systems.
Yep.
The idea that the world is completely broken, the experts are blind, the masses are mummies, but our small group holds the cosmic source code, and soon we will awaken to save humanity from itself.
It truly is a masterclass in absolute worldview construction. Whether one finds his cosmology inspiring or baffling or alarming, the scale of the intellectual architecture Xuefeng has built is undeniable.
Totally undeniable.
He left absolutely no stone unturned in his effort to dismantle and redefine reality from the ground up.
It has been a massive intellectual journey, unpacking this source text. We started with the beautiful, abstract mechanics of the Tao acting as the cosmic operating system, and virtues serving as the perfect user interface.
Yeah.
We watched the author systematically write off the globe's scientists, scholars, atheists, and major world religions as blindfolded toddlers and frogs in dark wells.
And morning mushrooms.
And it all culminated in this dramatic mythical prophecy of the Chanyuan Celestials emerging from their cocoons to rescue a mummified human race.
The sheer scope of his claims really forces the reader to interrogate their own assumptions about truth, power, and the institutions we trust to define reality.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the architecture of Xuefeng's worldview, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to ponder. Throughout this text, the author fiercely criticizes existing religions and political parties for being fragile, enclosed systems. He argues that they're terrified of outside ideas and quickly lose their immunity, relying on dogmatic borders to survive.
That was the core of his critique against the guardians of established orthodoxy. They lock themselves inside their own doctrines.
Right. But if a completely new group arrives and declares itself the sole inheritor of universal truth, if they claim to be the absolute only ones who can embody the Tao, even while calling themselves boundless and infinite, does the very act of declaring themselves the only ones inevitably turn them into the exact kind of enclosed, rigid system they set out to replace?
That is the big question.
Can you ever truly claim to be a boundless ocean if you are the one aggressively guarding the beach?
That is the ultimate stress test for any ideology that claims to hold the absolute truth. The moment you build a wall to protect your boundlessness, you've defined your own limits.
Something to chew on as you go about your day. Thank you so much for taking this intellectual journey with us, and for being curious enough to explore the deep waters. Until next time.